Hi everyone at Temple Israel. We are going to be introducing you to Rabbi Kinneret Shiryon, who will be joining us for the High Holy Days and Sukkot and Simchat Torah, all the way through September and October, our guest rabbi here with us. So I'm very pleased to be able to have this conversation with Rabbi Kinneret, and I'll be asking her some questions about herself. And in fact, that's the first question. So, Rabbi Kinneret, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
My name is Rabbi Kinneret Shiryon. I'm happy to be able to do this little video so that you get to know me before I come and be part of your community. I'm looking very much forward to being with you and celebrating with you and marking moments in your lives as a community. I'll give you a little bit of my background. I was born in New York, and my family moved to upstate New York, where most of my childhood was spent. After that, we moved to Northern California. My maternal grandmother was a survivor of the Holocaust. She's the only member of her family who survived. Her entire family was murdered by the Nazis. Her mother, her father, her siblings, their children, cousins, aunts, and uncles. And that had a big impact on my sense of identity. When I was a young girl, I read 3 books that impacted me, I would say, dramatically. I was young. I was either 9 or 10 years old. And the first book I read was The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank and Night by Elie Wiesel. It was important for me to try and understand the story of my family. And I also read Leon Uris's Exodus. Those 3 books impacted me and helped form my identity, I think. I did my undergraduate work at the University of California at Berkeley in comparative literature, Hebrew and French literature. And I got my master's in Hebrew literature. I was ordained in 1981. I was among the first 22 women who received ordination through the Reform movement. And I married Baruch Shiryon, an Israeli who I met in the United States. We had a wonderful marriage for 40 years. We were together, and we have 4 children. Unfortunately, Baruch died of cancer in 2016, and from our 4 children, we now have 9 grandchildren. In 2020, I met Yonatan Yisrael, and we had also a widower who was married happily to Yvette for 50 years. And we had what I like to say is a Corona romance. And we've been together ever since, and we feel very blessed that we have each other in our lives. Together we have 15 grandchildren.
What led to you becoming a rabbi?
Often people ask me what led me to becoming a rabbi. I decided to become a rabbi when I was 15 years old. There were no women rabbis at the time, so I had no female role models. I think the decision came in a very natural way. I grew up in a family that was very identified Jewishly. My family was very active in the conservative synagogue where I grew up in Schenectady. And when we moved to California, they put together a group of families because they couldn't find a congregation that fit their ideological approach. And they put together what today would be known as a chavruah. Then there was no term for it, but there were 10 or 15 families that got together and celebrated the holidays together, celebrated Shabbat. And once a week they taught the children. I remember one of the parents saying, we just keep a chapter ahead about their Jewish history and Jewish culture. And that was also a formative part of my life. I was very active in youth groups and I was the president of United Synagogue Youth, regional president in Northern California. My time in Schenectady, where I was a minority, I grew up as in a Christian culture, and when I would come to school during Pesach with matzot, and I couldn't like trade sandwiches, and with my friends at school, they'd ask me, why are you eating these weird crackers? I found myself being like a spokesman about Judaism and Jewish life, and sometimes they asked me questions which I didn't have the answers to, and it motivated me to delve further and to look further into my Jewish identity. The synagogue was our home away from home. We went to services every week. I was active in the junior congregation. Again, when we moved to California and we started this chavurah, I was 14 years old at the time. They asked me if I would teach the young children, which I loved doing. Later, my family joined a conservative congregation with most of the families that were part of our chavurah. And the rabbi there had a big influence on my life. And in a very natural way, I became a leader in Jewish community. I was teaching remedial Hebrew to the students that were having trouble in Hebrew school. I led the junior congregation in the congregation in California. And I was very active, as I said before, in the youth movement. And it was just a natural process that I would become a rabbi. That's what interested me. Judaism interested me. Explaining Judaism and sharing Jewish life seemed to me the most natural step that I could have taken.
You were the founding rabbi of an amazing congregation in Modi'in called Yozma. Could you tell us a bit about that synagogue?
When I moved to Israel, I became the first congregational rabbi, female rabbi, in the history of the state. I was the rabbi of a congregation in Tel Aviv called Kehilat Ramat Aviv. And from there, when my family moved to Maccabim, which is a community, right, that has been absorbed into the city of Modin. Modin was a planned city, and that city began in 1995, was the first population that moved in. In 1996, I moved to the area, and I decided that I would start a congregation of my own. It was important to me to have a congregation that grew in an indigenous way, where Israelis, Jewish Israelis, who had difficulty defining who they were Jewishly, religiously, could have a framework with which to do it in. And I decided that I would start with young families. At the time, the city was just beginning to build itself. And when I went to the mayor and I said I'd like to open up a preschool, he was on board, because the city, the population was growing, the infrastructure wasn't growing fast enough, so it was a win-win situation. The mayor said, fine, you get the students, you get the families involved, we'll provide for you a facility, and we'll see what we can do. So that's how I began Yozma. I reached out to young families in a very, very basic way, with flyers at the city hall during pre-registration for preschools in the city, and I wanted them to understand that I was starting a reform preschool where Jewish life would be the main focus of what happens in the preschool, where the children would learn blessings before eating their meals and blessing after their meals. They would have the opportunity of putting on kippot. They would have the opportunity of doing a Kabbalat Shabbat service. The focus for most of the families that joined us was not necessarily the Jewish reform aspect, but that we were a small kindergarten, and they wanted a framework that was more personal. And luckily, they were open to the idea of Jewish life and Jewish living, and were curious. Most of them were very curious about it. Our first gan was made up of mostly secular Israelis. Two families came from Reform background, a family from England that grew up in the Reform movement, and a family from the United States. And we had 3 Orthodox families that were also became involved in our kindergarten program. And when I asked the parents of the families, I said, I understand that you come from an Orthodox background. I'm a Reform rabbi, and we will be teaching in a pluralistic and egalitarian environment. I hope that fits your outlook. And I was very touched by their answers. All 3 families said, look, our children are going to go into a Orthodox framework in formal Jewish education, and we wanted them to be exposed to something else. And we read your literature, and we wanted our children to be part of this community. So that was very exciting for us. Yozma started with 1 preschool of 24 families. Of those families, there were parents who became involved in the life of the congregation, and we began services once a week. We would sit on the little kindergarten chairs in the kindergarten space until we got Keter plastic chairs to sit on for the high holidays. And from there we grew. We grew to 2 preschool programs, and then we grew to 4 preschool programs, and then to 4 preschool programs and 2 kindergartens. Our kindergartens were the first Reform Jewish kindergartens recognized by the Ministry of Education in the state of Israel. Congregational kindergartens. There was a Reform kindergarten that was recognized in Jerusalem, but not tied to a particular congregation. And from there, the parents, who were very happy with the kind of education their children were receiving, they wanted to start a school. It took us a long time to get the school off the ground, a few years, and we succeeded. And the school's been functioning beautifully. We're the first Reform Jewish day school, public day school in the state, also recognized by the state, and we funding by the Ministry of Education. It was a very big, long battle, but a positive one. While we were working towards building our school, we also were turning to the state to build a synagogue. In Israel, the only congregations that were funded by the state were Orthodox congregations, and we had an 11-year battle in the Supreme Court in Jerusalem, and from that battle, I won't go into all the details, that will be for one of our meetings together, but we were the first non-Orthodox congregation recognized by the state and funded to help build us our sanctuary, our small, modest sanctuary, which today we've grown so much that we are going to be expanding. I want to talk a little bit about the life of, besides the formal education programs, we have, of course, many informal education programs for adolescents and young adults and adults. At the same time, we have the strongest branch of the youth movement for the Israeli progressive movement in the country, as well as social action programs that to me are the core of why we started this education program, why we brought these families into the community, in order to live out the philosophy of the prophets, which is to pay attention to those on the margins of society. In the Torah, it talks about the orphans and the widows, and those that are the weakest link in society, and our obligation to support and to help. And Yozma translates that into many, many different activities. I forgot to tell you that the meaning of Yozma why I chose this name for our congregation. Yozma in Hebrew means initiative. And it was my desire to provide the tools to secular Israelis to define their religious Jewish identity, to take initiative for their Jewish identity and taking ownership of their Jewish identity and not just their Israeli secular identity. It is also a abbreviation for the words Yahadut Zmanenu Moreshet Ha'am, Judaism of today, heritage of the people, which of course is the essence of what Reform Judaism is all about. So I want to go back to the social action activities that we do. We reach out to people in families in Yozma that in Modin that are economically challenged. And we have a program called Yozman, which is a combination of the word Yozma and Zman, which is time. We have 77 volunteers that teach children from elementary school right up through high school and do private tutoring for a very modest price of 5 shekel a week. And these families get tutoring in mathematics and in language and in English and in biology and whatever subject that they're having difficulty in. It has been life-changing for these children to be able to have private lessons without having to pay the large sums that people do pay for private tutoring. I'm very proud of this activity that we do. We have adopted for over 20 years, maybe 25 years now, a place called Beit Eden in Ramla, which is for children with special needs. And every week we have volunteers that go and do a Kabbalat Shabbat service with them and celebrate the holidays together. We have once a year a bar and bat mitzvah ceremony, which is very, very moving, where our children from the school, the 5th graders and the 6th graders, are involved in helping them celebrate this big event, and where the rabbis teach the ones that are capable of saying the blessings. Some of them can only say Amen, but that they can mark this time in their life of becoming adolescents. And this has been ongoing and very, very rewarding for many of our volunteers. We also now, today, some of these young people have become young adults, and they are in a living situation in Modin. And these young adults come to services and they celebrate with us and all the different holidays, and are a big part of our community. And the connections that have been built between these young people and these young adults and their families have been quite extraordinary. We, for many, many years, held a single-parent family support group. We have a refrigerator that is open to the community. People come and just bring in food, and people who are in need of food come, and they know that they can come and take and get a meal out of that refrigerator. This is just on the tip of the mazleg, you say in Hebrew. The tip of the iceberg, maybe in English, is the expression of the many activities that we do to reach out into the community. I want to talk about Kumsitz, which started a few years back, which is a fantastic program for seniors, people who have retired. It is a program that has lectures, and it has dance and yoga, qigong lessons, and it is a place where people can study and be together, and it has been very, very successful for people in this stage of their lives who are looking for an anchor and looking for community. And this has been also one of our most successful programs in the last few years.
What do you love most about being a rabbi?
Being a rabbi for me has been one of the most extraordinary parts of my life. The thing I like best about the rabbinate are those personal connections, touching people's lives through my work, through life cycle ceremonies, whether it's birth, bar and bat mitzvah celebrations, weddings, deaths, counseling people during times of crisis, helping people, being there for them. That for me brings me enormous satisfaction and joy and meaning in my own life.
What about important people in your life? Inspirational mentors, anyone like that?
Mentors in my life. I mentioned the rabbi when I was 15 years old. That was most significant in my life. His name is Rabbi Jerry Danzig. He was ordained through the Orthodox movement. He was the rabbi of the conservative congregation my family was active in. And he brought Torah alive for me. We would study Parashat HaShavua every week and at the synagogue during the Torah service, and he would bring such meaning and relevance to the teachings of the Torah that I wanted to model myself after him. The other person that was most significant in my life and helping me and being my backbone during all the years that I've been in the rabbinate was my husband Baruch. He's the person who I deliberated with, the person who gave me feedback, positive and less positive, and helped me through difficulties and times. And I would also say that I have a lot of inspiration from my own children and the kind of people they have become. So they would be the people that were most influential in my life.
You've been a rabbi in some really interesting places in the world. Can you tell us about a few of those, please?
Two communities that I will mention are Bangkok and Bali, because they're so far away. I'm very impressed with the people that live in Bangkok, the also native Thailandic and also expats that live there and have made their lives there, built their lives. Their liberal Jewish identity is so important to them that they are a small group of people, maybe 35 families. They are working and striving to keep Jewish life alive. There's a strong Chabad in Bangkok. It's mostly for when Israelis come to visit during the high holidays, and they provide free services and free food and what have you. But these are people that have strong ideological backbones and did not find their place with Chabad. So they put together a congregation many years ago. They don't have a rabbi, and they have guest rabbis that come in that help them. And my experience there was very moved by their commitment and their solidarity to maintaining Jewish liberal life. Same holds true for Bali. The Bali community unfortunately folded after COVID, but I was there before that happened, and there was an Israeli woman who would open up her home every Friday night for people to come and to have a Shabbat, Kabbalat Shabbat service and a free meal. It was quite extraordinary. And they also they drew a crowd of about 50 people for the high holidays, and mostly people who were visiting, coming through. But again, there was a core group of people for that Jewish life was important to them. So they got together on Shabbatot, and they got together for the holidays. And it was a great privilege to be able to be with them and to bring my Jewish background and rabbinic tools and to lead them for the high holiday services there. There was one other place that I went to in Tasmania in Australia, where I think the entire Jewish community of Hobart is about 35 people, Jews, that live there. And I was fortunate enough to be there during Sukkot, and every day of Sukkot, I visited another sukkah of these families. And that was also I think the one thing that ties it together of these communities is their enormous commitment to maintaining their identity as Jews in a liberal way. In Hobart there, the liberal community, of the 35 Jews, there may be 3 or 4 who identify Orthodox, and they do an Orthodox service for them, and they respect that for them, and the rest of the time it's for the liberal community. So I think that people have learned to reach out to each other and to make bonds that help them maintain their identity.
Well, I know that we're really looking forward to you being here in Cape Town. What are you looking forward to about this trip?
Looking forward to my trip to Cape Town very, very much. I'm looking forward to meeting all of you, learning about your thriving community and your challenges, the challenges that face you. I'm also very much looking forward to experiencing the beauty of Cape Town. Everybody who comes from Cape Town, who has been to Cape Town, who has heard about Cape Town, talks to me about the beauty of the community, so I am excited about that. And I'm happy to be able to bring my perspective on liberal Jewish life in Israel, which is not always easy and challenging, but at the same time very, very fulfilling. So we will see each other soon in the beginning of September, and I look forward to it very, very much. Thank you.
Rabbi Kinneret, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you for your time with us. And it won't be long before you'll be here in person. So we're so looking forward to having you here. All the best, safe journeys, and see you in Cape Town.